what's up, dudes? HW here. Howdy, howdy, ho. Howdy, howdy, ho. Some morning over here in the TJ studios. And I'm just pretending to know how to play jazz. You know what I mean? You ever do that? You ever sit down with a guitar and just go, let's pretend that I know how to play jazz. Well, that's pretty jazzy, you know? You just go. Wait, that was the wrong key. You know, you just sort of make it up. That's what I do. That's what I do, man. Man, today, listen, a little bit of a, I won't call it a clickbait topic, but this was a statement that I didn't agree with, but the more I thought about it, the more I started to go, that's more true than I have been willing to admit in the past. Today's guitars are 10 times better than vintage guitars. Now, let me tell you how I started thinking about this and how we got here. I did a video a little while back on, well, this is a copy. This is a Tokai copy. This is not a Gibson Les Paul. This is a copy. I own a bunch of copies of stuff. This is a Tokai from the 80s, and it's a wonderful instrument. It is a wonderful instrument. And it's a copy that was made back in 1984, I believe. I'm pretty sure. It might be 82, but in my head it's 84. I'd have to go back and look at the paperwork that I have on it. And in 84, they were doing incredible things, and this is a top-of-the-line Tokai for that year. It even, fun fact, came with DiMarzio PAF pickups, except guess what? There's some doubt whether they're actual DiMarzios, because from what people have pieced together, it looks like Tokai actually just paid DiMarzio the rights to use the name PAF and actually made them right there in the Fuji Gengaki factory where they made the guitar. So they weren't importing the DiMarzio PAFs. They were actually just winding their own DiMarzio PAFs and putting them in here. And apparently that was the plan the whole time. It wasn't under the table or anything. DiMarzio knew that. At least that's how I've understood it. And so these are pretty lovely, kind of bright, low output pickups. I mean, they're bright for a Les Paul. Like they're nice and they're nice and toneful. You know, they're low output and they've got a good amount of brightness, but there's still that humbucker, you know, PAF type thing. But it really reminds me of like a Great Lawler low wind Imperial, like that kind of nice magic thing. But that's not what the video is about. The video is really focused on these two guitars. So lately I've been raving about this Harley Benton, and it's really just a lovely guitar. Let's hear how they sound together, or how they sound compared to each other, because all I did was I was at the neck pickup and I rolled my tone down to like 3 or 4. Beautiful sound. Hey, man, you know, that's a $3,000 guitar versus a $350 guitar. I mean, you know, they play a little different, but that's what it is. But really, in the last video, I was comparing this guitar to this 1967 Gibson Trini Lopez. That is not a reissue. That's a real one. And I called it a $13,000 guitar. Now, a gentleman in the comments pointed something out to me. And he said, you know, and this is a really fair point, actually, the more I thought about it. He said, you know, you're not really comparing a $13,000 guitar to a $350 guitar, like kind of the video made it seem. You're actually really, if you take away the provenance of the vintageness, right? People pay for old stuff. If you just look at what the craftsmanship in that guitar cost compared to the craftsmanship in this guitar, That guitar used to be, and he said about $100. It wasn't. It was more, actually. So I went and looked it up. So a lot of people don't know this, but if you look up the old ES 335s, 345s, 355s, that actually stands for electric Spanish. They thought that they had done electric guitars, solid body, and now they wanted to show that it was electric semi-hollow. And so they called that electric Spanish, like a Spanish guitar was how they were referring to an acoustic guitar. And so they thought, ES, electric Spanish, and the numbers were actually the original Gibson suggested retail price. So $335, slightly nicer, a little more accoutrement, was the 345. And then if you wanted the stereo model, with the Veritone and everything, you'd go ES 355. That was the suggested retail price on the guitars. They didn't have a ton of names for all this stuff. They weren't really, it's a Gibson. Gibson was kind of behind, There was the Stratocaster, the Telecaster, the Jazzmaster, the Mustang, all this stuff. Gibson's over here going L5. Let's get an endorsement. Les Paul, right? They're doing that stuff, and that's fine. That's great. They're acoustics, J45. You know what I mean? Like, they weren't very inventive with the names. Jumbo 45. I don't know. Was that supposed to cost $45? I don't really know the answer to that question. But the point is, the original retail price of those ES guitars was around the $335, $345, $355. So about $350, right? Well, this Trini Lopez was a signature model for a gentleman named Trini Lopez. And that has a factory Bigsby. And, at this same time in the late 50s, the Telecaster cost $189, and the Stratocaster was a little more, I think, at like $229 or something, $230, right? It had the synchronized tremolo. It was the upgrade. And so they were designed to be cheaper guitars. They were designed to be more cost-effective. Not cheap, but they were designed, Leo designed those guitars to be manufactured more affordably. Well, this guitar originally retailed for $375, according to ChatGPT, right? So I went and plugged that in, and I said, Chat, how much is that in today's dollars? And Chat pointed out that that is about $3,500 in today's dollars. So what that means is, and this was a wild thought for me. In my head, I've always thought, man, guitars, I wish I'd go back and buy one of those old Les Pauls. Of course I do. But if that guitar originally retailed for the equivalent of today's $3,500, because that's what $375 was back then, right? Almost 10x today in today's dollars. What that means is, actually, modern production Gibsons haven't really gotten that much more expensive, adjusted for inflation. Because you can still go get a pretty standard, you can get a lot of ES style guitars for $3,500, brand new from Gibson. You can get a lot more on the used market for that. And this one would be a little more. I think they're in like the 4,000 range. I'm really not sure. The Trini Lopez 64 reissues would be more, a little more. But all that to say, if you adjust for inflation, Gibson is actually selling lots of guitars at about the same price they did in the 50s and the 60s. Food for thought, Now, you might have some gripe about, I think it's more than that. It feels like more than that, And it's like, yeah, that's true. There's been some tomfoolery with what they count in the inflation numbers. They've taken a lot of things out that we all need and stuff. But anyway, that's an economics lesson for another time. What got me thinking was, okay, if we say that guitar is $3,500, that guitar $3,500. And this guitar, I'm having a hard time speaking today. This guitar is about $350, $375. Honestly, I think that's a better guitar. But it's but this thing's amazing. If my house burned down and I lost everything tomorrow and we had no money and the first guitar I would go out and buy would be like one of these, because I could go play with it. Would it be my favorite guitar in the world? No. But I could go play with it. I could go do my thing with it. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with this. I've really, really have grown in my respect for this guitar, but it got me thinking. Let's say these guitars are on par with each other. Or let's take the vintage thing out of it. Let's just say that's a new one. This is as good as a lot of standard Gibsons I've played. Now, I might not love the neck on this thing as much, but honestly, these Tesla pickups are really great. And I don't like 57 Classics, right? And I know a lot of people are going to go, come on, dude, you're saying import pickups are as good as 57 Classics. I'll be honest, I'm just a person that judges with my ears. I don't like 57 Classics. I don't think they sound as good as most other things out there. They sound fine, but I think a Lawler's a huge upgrade. The stuff that usually is in my Tokais or in a PRS, I have a 5708, which is a PAF replica, the first ones that they really did, that PRS did, with the old Gibson wire that they found in storage somewhere and they bought from some company. They only made those pickups in '08. To me, they're absolutely beautiful and lovely and just the best. I'll do a video on that in the future, but you just heard me play on this thing in the same thing as that Tokai, and you can watch the other video if you want to hear these two guitars back to back. They really sound a little different from each other, but one doesn't really sound better than the other. Now, here I am, a guy who owns 30 to 50 vintage amps. I'm really an amp guy, and then I've got a couple old Gibsons, an old Guild. I've got a bunch of stuff from the 70s, 80s, Japan stuff, Tokais and Greco and stuff. I love old vintage stuff, and I've owned many, many old ES guitars, actually like 4 or 5. But yeah, what's wild to me is in the 60s, this was what you could get, and then below this stuff was Strat and Tele and all that. But when you got below that, there wasn't anything there. That's where you start to get the Dan Electros and the Montgomery Ward's guitars and the K guitars and these types of things, these much cheaper things that really didn't hold up over time because they actually were not manufactured that well. And what's crazy is this guitar will be around in 60 years, trust me. This guitar is built with a quality that the cheapest guitars in the 1960s were not built with. Also, I would say if you've ever played a lot of vintage Gibsons, I would really challenge the idea, especially in the Norlin era 70s stuff. I do not think tolerances were very tight at all. Maybe there was a great couple years in the late 50s, but you get into the 60s and the 70s and you start to see the cost cutting and you start to see a lot of stuff. I've played so many vintage guitars that I just go, this one does not have it. In fact, most of the stuff I've played at Carter's has not had it. And that's not a knock on Carter's. That's just saying you pick up a rando vintage guitar, a random 1969 Telecaster, and it might kind of suck. You know what I mean? Like that happens. Now, I don't know when it was just Leo and 2 or 3 guys, right? When it was just him and Fullerton, and maybe every one of them was great. I don't know. Maybe every 58, 59, and 60 Les Paul and 57 are awesome. Like maybe they're all done right because it was small and quality control was tight. But if you're talking a run-of-the-mill 60s Gibson, especially getting into the mid to late 60s, going into the Norlin era when they were changing stuff up for cost cutting, they were doing a ton of that. If you're talking about after CBS buys the company, I got every blackface amp right here. I know all about what CBS started doing. The first thing they did was cost cut. 1966, all the same circuits, but guess what changes? The speakers. All of them. They immediately start bean counting. No, I want this one over this one over this one, right? Gibson, real quick, was like 1-piece body. How about 11-piece body? I mean, they were pancaking stuff together. They're going to everything different, right? They're going, we don't want to, people a lot of times point out scarf joints in the neck right here. Gibson's had 3-piece headstocks and 3 and even 4-piece pancake bodies stuck together. They've been gluing wood together in guitars when since before rock and roll got truly great with Kiss. No, I'm kidding. I love a lot of bands before Kiss. I'm just joshing with you. But it really made me go, wait a minute. 35, these two guitars cost about the same amount, but they cost that amount 60 years apart from each other. And that one was $375 and this one was $350. And this isn't even the cheapest thing you can get today. You can get all sorts of new stuff for $299, for $189. And my point is, this guitar I'll still own if I keep it. This guitar will look, sound, and play great in 60 years. because it has a truss rod. It's solid wood. It's not like the Montgomery Ward, Sears, and Roebuck stuff. It's not like the Dan Electro or any of the Silvertone. It's not like any of that where it's going to be falling apart. And I got some old Silvertone amps, and they don't leave the house because you move those things around too much. They're made of particle board. They're not going to last, and they don't last. They have to sit as museum pieces and kind of rarely be turned on. You can't gig them. But this guitar will be around. I could give this to my kids. They're probably going to look at it and go, Dad, why'd you give me this cheapo $350 guitar? It's just not worth anything. That one, they'll be like, Dad, why don't I sell that and buy something great? You know? Like $13,000 in Roebucks. Am I the only one whose kids spend too much money on Roebucks? Anyway. My point is, it kind of feels to me like stuff in this price range, it used to be that, and now it's this. But that costs 10 times more, and I don't think this is 10 times less a guitar. I just don't. And that's after owning a lot of vintage stuff. And so to me, I'm going, man, utilitarian-wise, forget that that's a Gibson, and it's got soul, and the wood is extra dried, and it's got the special pickups, and all of the, like, romance about it. Because I wonder today, I really do ask myself this question. That guitar is awesome, and there's some magic to it. But I really ask myself, if God could play some cruel trick on me in the universe, where I walk into a shop and I get a brand new guitar that feels and sounds exactly like that one, would I even notice? And I don't know, man. I think I would, because I think there's a genuine magic to that thing. But I doubt it a little bit, because for some reason, I've just been on this kick where all the cheap stuff, I've just been going, this is incredible. How is anyone upset with this? And I really do play some people's Gibsons, and I go, this kid's guitar is a dog. And they're into it. And then I pick up something like this, and people go, oh, that's a cheapo. And I go, this is awesome. This is great. I mean, I see it's high gloss, and it's, the volute in the back, and the, shape is wrong. And are the pickups perfect? It's not perfect, but damn, for $350, it's better than anything you could have gotten in any era. And I would say in a lot of instances, what makes a good guitar good guitar? This thing stays in tune, sounds great, and it would be the right guitar for a lot of situations that one wouldn't be. And if you take all the vintage provenance out of it, isn't that what we want? A guitar we enjoy playing, that sounds good, stays in tune. That's all of it, I think. Right? I don't know. Maybe I'm going crazy. I've been HW.